Hey everybody, this is Nate at DevCon. I have bad news for you all this week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get Ned on Skype, so I guess instead of having Ned on Skype, we're just going to have Ned right here. So welcome to the show, Ned. Here he is, Ned Scott, the one and only. So we're here this week to answer questions and talk to you about DevCon and all the things that have gone on this week. And to do that, I guess first we can kind of break down, we can break down all the things that have happened so far and maybe answer some of the questions that you guys have posted in the forums and on the blog and everywhere else. So to start out, you need to go to Kodi.tv, which is our website, not our, Kodi's website. Go to the first post, which is the live blog this week, and just kind of read through, see what we've been talking about so far. A lot of the things we've been talking about are not exactly answers to questions that you've asked, just because we had an internal idea of what we wanted to talk about for this week, and most of it has to do with making Kodi.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the new Gem movie.
It did have to do with that a lot. Okay. That's true. You make a good point. But aside from the new Gem movie, which took up a good 7 hours of the conversation, we did have 45 minutes for other things. So to recap a few of those things, we talked about. Well, I should have that open actually.
That thread.
No, the live
blog.
Live blog. Just so we can recap some of the things. There were some things that we talked about that are less exciting for users, so I'm not going to go over those. Usually internal politics stuff, which I don't know. Maybe that is exciting for you guys, but I just don't want to get into it because I hate internal conflict.
We're installing a new Thunderdome to resolve conflicts.
That's true. We
did. Two devs enter, one dev leaves.
We did do that. It was pretty exciting. So let's start with the things that are very exciting. Moving forward with side projects. There are 3 or 4 projects that have been running in the Kodi background for a long time, and we've got a roadmap and a plan to actually get these things going. Nobody knows if we'll actually stick to this because, as always, this is open source, but we have an idea. The 3 major projects are binary add-ons and the ability to push binary add-ons to the various Kodi platforms. RetroPlayer, which I talk about incessantly, and what was the third one? Library importing. Mona Lisa's stuff, which works with UPnP. And theoretically will ultimately make it so that you only need to create a library once and it'll just go to all of your devices. So we've talked about these things, and it looks like the way we're going to do it is binary add-ons is evidently the easiest thing to do. We could theoretically do that this week if we wanted to. Really, all it is working out the structure of those add-ons in the background and then figuring out how to push them to each platform. Most platforms, it's super easy. With Windows, with OS X or OS X, with iOS, all it is you have the app, download them just like any other add-on. The trouble areas are Android and Linux. And Linux, the only reason it's a trouble area, we could do it there too, but it's kind of accepted that the right way to do it in Linux is through the... what's that thing called?
apt-get, or at least if you're using Ubuntu, but basically a package manager, which is how we do PVR binary add-ons right now.
Right. So package manager. And then Android is a whole nother ball of wax, because with Android, if you want to install a binary add-on, you literally have to go through the APK process, actually install it from Google Play or somewhere else. And we don't really have any kind of means to do that. So we are not really sure how to handle that one. There was talk, but I've already forgotten what they said.
It was very technical. I don't know.
Super technical.
All right, but top minds are on it, though.
Top minds. Okay, so binary. That's binary add-ons, and the reason I bring that up is because Retro Player, a lot of Retro Players based on binary add-ons. Everything's pushed into binary add-ons, so you can update those without having to update the main code. And so the plan at this point, and it could change, is when we go to Alpha 1 for Kodi 17, which is the next version of Kodi, we're going to push Input, which is the first half of Retro Player, and Sasha Monaleza's library import stuff into Kodi immediately. So those will be the first two things in Kodi 17. Whether the rest of Retro Player gets in is unknown, partly because that's that's a huge code change already that we're dealing with. So we need to be able to test that before we can go forward. But that's the plan. So it's pretty big news. We're finally making headway on both those things. Very exciting.
Yeah.
We're trying to rush through this because we have more stuff to do later today. So sorry if we cut this short. So that's side projects. There's imports. Next, we reviewed stats on Android users, testers, etc. And there were some really interesting facts that I didn't know about. The one thing I did know was that Android users right now make up about half of our users, which is crazy. It's like Windows was the king for so long, and now Android's come and just blown it up. The other amazing thing is that while it accounts for almost half of our users, it doesn't show any signs of stopping in terms of user base.
No, it's growing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we looked at a line. It's essentially from the moment we made it available on Android to today. It's just one straight line. It never varies at all.
Which is actually kind of weird. Statistically, that shouldn't normally happen with an app. It's like a consistent rate of climb.
Extremely consistent. Like, we were expecting there to be 500,000 users in the first day and then nobody for a long time. But it's just been 10 to 15,000 users forever, every single day, since we made it available back in June or whatever it was. So it was really cool. The other thing that was it's a little frustrating is that while it's really cool that we have all these new users, the core base of users, who are the ones that help us with testing and all of that, and who install alphas and do all those things, haven't changed at all.
Yeah, that hasn't grown with the other users.
Yeah.
So like you would think, for every 10 users, maybe one's a tester. Mm-hmm. But no, it's the same amount of testers.
Yeah, so. Roughly, I think Kib said 50,000, I think.
Yeah.
So we had 50,000 test users back in 2013, and today we still do. And back in 2013, we had somewhere around 2 million users, and today it's somewhere like 8 to 10 million. So it's crazy how many people have gotten involved in just using Kodi, but how very few have gotten involved in really participating in Kodi. It's a mixed blessing. We love having all those users, and it may eventually be useful if we're able to say to, not Netflix, we'll never be able to get Netflix, but Vivo or whoever. Funny or Die. We could say to them, look at all these users, you want to have an official add-on, and they'll be like, wow, 10 million, that's a lot of users. So that's cool, but in terms of actual development, it doesn't help us a lot, those 10 million users. Still, it's cool. It's fun to say we have 10 million users, which evidently is how many active users Roku has right now.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty neat. Those numbers might be made up. I don't know.
Were we...
I think Keith said that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
How many Roku users exist?
I thought there were 5 total. Not 5 million, just 5.
And that it's
a good product.
To be fair, we're cheating a little bit. Roku is pretty much exclusively America, and we're pretty much exclusively everywhere, also America. So those were the excuse me, I've been talking really fast, really quickly. Those were the stats we looked at. Next, we looked at that's Android. Next, we talked about the fact that I don't want to give numbers for this one because it's a little embarrassing. But we have 1.5 million Android users on just using Google Play, updating through Google Play. There are lots of others, evidently, that sideload still. But those are the Google Play users, and we have a very large number of unactive users. Those are only active users. We also have unactive users who've uninstalled on Android, which gives us the first opportunity we've ever had, really, to have a base to know how many people install and then uninstall. We've never really known that before. We've always had kind of an idea how many users are actually using, not how many are using and then rejecting. And the number's big enough that we've kind of looked into seeing what's causing that. And our best guess is sort of twofold. One is that, like we said, the majority of our users don't speak English, or
Aren't
it's
from,
pretty close.
Well, considering there's 10, excuse me, dusty in here. No,
Yeah.
it's not. Considering there's 10 million users, only I think there's a big chunk of it coming from English-speaking countries, but not as big as you'd think. It's actually just a small part of the pie.
Yeah,
It's
comparatively.
statistically speaking, it's there's.
Yeah. So the question is, what causes the problem? And we think one of the big issues is that it's extraordinarily difficult in Kodi to change your language when you first install Kodi.
Yeah.
So for non-English speakers, which those of you listening, some of you probably have family members who fit this category exactly. They install it and then they don't know what to do, because in most applications, when you're dealing with a big international base, the first thing that happens is you open it and it asks you what language you want to use. Or it defaults to the language that your OS is using. But we don't do that. We always default to English, specifically British English. And so the solution that we're talking about at this point is to have kind of a two-step system. First, try to figure out what the language is that your OS is running. So if you're on Android and Android's set to French, then it should default to French. And the second thing is, once it's found that default, you'll get a window when you first pop up, if you've never installed it before, saying, you have French as your default language, here's French, would you like to use French in Kodi? And you say yes. And that does it. So we think that should solve a lot of the problem, at least in that regard. There's one other, obviously even bigger issue, though, which is Kodi is, as we always say, a media player, not a media provider, which means that the first time you install Kodi, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's totally empty.
People expect something, like they think it's like a Netflix or something, and there's no the things.
Yeah, there's nothing there. So unless you knew beforehand what you were getting into, Kodi can be pretty frustrating to deal with. And so that's the other thing we've talked about a lot at this DevCon. Maybe trying to come up with better ways to make it obvious how to add content to your program. Whether that means putting together like a window or something where users can see, oh, I can add movies from my local library, or pictures or music, or just add-ons. I mean, frankly, I think a lot of users evidently use add-ons almost exclusively these days, and maybe we can make it easier. And to be fair, even legitimate add-ons. I know for a fact that there are a lot of users out there who use Kodi exclusively for Twitch streaming. So making it easier to get to that in the first place totally makes sense to me. So that's another thing we talked about. I think we're still sort of planning stages talk about that. I'm not really sure where we're going to go with that ultimately, but that's another thing we've talked about. Let's see. Okay, so we finished that. Then there are some major platform refactors. We talked about having mini DevCons. That's not very exciting for you guys. I'm going to skip that.
You're not invited, so you probably don't care.
And neither of us are invited either, so we can't even tell you about them. So we'll skip those. They're boring.
The idea, though, is that our developers, because we're internationally developed, and so most people are behind a computer screen, and it's very slow development. So the big players are going to be able to meet up and actually work out things and just get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah. And that's the goal. So, like, for example...
At least that's what they tell us. We suspect from all the receipts from escort services and shady gentlemen.
Right. No. So one of the big things that's happening actually right now is a refactor on how the video player works, so it can be faster and more efficient and work in a lot of cool ways that we'll be able to get into later once I've actually looked into what those ways are. But for now, the problem is one guy's sort of been doing all the development work for this, and that development works great in Linux, but it needs to be ported and working in Windows and Android and OS 10, Macs and iOS and all that stuff.
Working there too.
Well, I'm just saying that it needed to be ported and all that
yeah.
stuff. And so one of the points of these mini DevCons is to get together all of the platform developers who are needed, or whatever developers, depending on what is happening, getting them all together in one place so it can actually happen in a relatively expedient way. So that's that. Next, settings refactor. I'd say let's skip this one.
All you need to know is a lot of stuff that used to probably drive you nuts about our settings, like where two things would be in two different places.
Yeah.
Hopefully, will be a lot better, and things will be a lot more natural for settings.
Settings have always been developed from the developer's point of view, where these things I all worked on at the same time, so they should go together. Well, so the idea is to throw all that out and instead look at it from a user perspective and how they use the device, and so settings should be grouped in that way. I imagine old-time users of Kodi and originally XBMC won't really love the changes, or maybe you'll like it a lot.
It takes a little bit to get used to, just to know where things are, but it's very logical. It's very easy to, it doesn't take that long. It's not like a learning curve where some of the things we change still has a learning curve. This is just very logical placing of different things. Yeah,
based much more on how you use than anything else. So we're pretty excited about that. I'm not sure when that's going to go in. The one problem with this is the settings change, at least at the moment the way it's coded, will cause skins to break. And so we're hesitant to put it in Kodi 16 because we don't want every skin to break all of a sudden.
We try to do minimal, because we're doing more rapid releases. We try to make things a little easier on the skinners.
And that's, the second we break skins means all those skinners who never updated from Kodi 14 are probably still never going to update, which means all those have to go away finally, which sucks. So, so we're trying to avoid that. So I'm not sure. It probably won't go into 16. It probably almost certainly will go into 17. But how it goes in, whether we figure out some way to do it that doesn't break skins, or if we decide it should break skins and we just put it in early so they have a lot of time to fix it, we're not sure yet. So that is settings refactor, and that's all I have.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so should we go to questions?
Sure.
We have about 9 minutes left.
What are my 3 sizes? I don't know. Bust, waist, and butt. Okay.
No, none of that. Okay, so we'll ask Bry, the donor here. He has a lot of questions.
Pretty good question.
Yeah, pretty good. How does the team feel with the recent switch to Rero? I think we're all pretty big fans of it.
Yeah, I'll admit there was some worry about it originally, about especially with skins and breakage and stuff like that. I think we found a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
I think things are going a little slower than we wanted them to do. I think we wanted to do a few releases a year. But even just doing 2 releases a year, which is what we're aiming for right now, is a lot faster than we've ever done releases.
We used to be between a year and 18 months, so twice a year is pretty good. And it pisses off our users to no end. They're constantly like, why do you keep putting out new releases when you haven't fixed everything yet? And then we're like, we thought we did. You never gave us a bug report, so we didn't know it was broken.
That or... people often will interpret a release as something being ignored if it wasn't fixed. If something is still broken, it's probably not. It's still probably being worked on, and it's not that. It's just that there's other things happening as well that we want to push out to people. There's other fixes that we want to push out to people. And it's not like a resource where you can just channel all that into fixing a bug. Sometimes there's only like 1 or 2 people who really know how to fix a bug.
Yeah.
So a bug might still exist in other releases, but
they only had so much time in the first place. It's like,
rest assured that it's not that it's being ignored. It's just it's just hasn't been, that particular bug is sort of its own thing or whatever.
It's a little bit like on Facebook yesterday. I think I posted. I changed the background to the really cool Lego picture. Which, if you guys haven't seen it, you should absolutely go to the website. I don't have all my stuff here, or I'd show it to you. We're running off a laptop right now. It's not great, but definitely check it out if you haven't. It's cool Cody Lego setup thing. And immediately one of the first comments was, "Well, I guess the Cody team isn't working on anything important." Because the guy evidently thought that if one team member whose literally only job is to do art is working on art, that means we're not making fixes in the bug department. Mm-hmm. That's a good point if the team is literally one person who does art and bug fixing. But if the team is broken up into different groups, some of whom do art, then obviously the art's going to get done at a different pace than the bug fixing, etc.
The art guy might even offer to help, and like the developer's like, well, there's nothing you can do. You're an art guy.
Right.
Which is not to say that art guys can't be developers, but at least I don't think art guys are.
Danda actually has sort of become
that's right,
one.
Yes, yeah.
Well, anyway. Just a quick point. I think it's been merged now. Danda is very heavily behind all of the cool side-by-side 3D stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And he just showed us, we were just looking at his skin. Or I was. I don't think you were there.
I saw
you
it.
Saw it too?
You guys had the glasses.
We had 3D glasses on, looking at his skin in 3D, and it was so cool. It looked really awesome. The skin
itself actually has got kind of layers where the background fan art looks like it's behind.
Yeah, and if you move your head, it goes back and forth, and context menus really jump out at you and stuff. It was really neat.
Yeah. Which is cool. I mean, I always kind of knock 3D, but I gotta admit that was pretty cool.
It looked neat. I think it'll be a lot cooler once we get to these screens where they're 3D without needing glasses. I think it'll make a comeback because I think people will be impressed with it then. Okay, so that's Rero, binary add-ons. We kind of already talked about that actually. Unified PVR. I don't really know what that means. Somebody was talking about that.
What is it? Which question was that? Is that the one where he's talking about if it's?
Is it really something in the pipeline?
Oh, is what in the pipeline? Where is that question? I've seen
reading about unified PVR.
Unified PVR.
We're gonna skip that one because we don't know what you're talking about.
I know there has been discussion about having a PVR add-on be its own backend. I've heard people say that is technically possible, and things like library integration, but I don't think there's anything either being. There might be stuff being worked on, but nothing that's soon. Okay, I'm gonna skip. Let's find some other questions here. Retro player covered. Most excited about? I don't know. I'm excited about a lot of stuff. Here's some other questions that we didn't really cover during today's DevCon, and maybe, I don't know. Does anyone actually work on Kodi headless, or is Kodi client server planned in the future? And that's actually, that was one of the main things we talked about. So that UPnP importing that Mondelez is working on, we're finally going to merge in January. Mm-hmm. That roadmap. And that's kind of the first big step for headless. Until that's in, then headless doesn't really make sense because you don't have any kind of server system. Once at least not a good one. But now we'll have a good one. Yeah. So
once that's merged, then in theory, headless makes sense as sort of one of the next big things to pop in. Mm-hmm. That requires a dev to kind of push it, and I don't know if that's going to happen. The guy who's working on it right now is Tobias, and he's said himself that he's one of those guys that loves starting projects and kind of doing the bulk of the work, but doesn't love pushing it in at the end. So usually what he does is he does all that and then he lets somebody else do it. That's actually
the finishing touches.
Yeah. So he worked on Heimdall, which was this brilliant way of doing scanning in content.
scraping information. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it never got pushed in. And now it exists, and now it's actually a major part of the roadmap for Retro Player as we go forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
it's kind of like having he makes the recipe for some great food, but you have to make the banquet.
yeah. And we are now out of time already.
Oh.
So maybe tomorrow we'll see if we can't do another one of these. Maybe we'll do 2 quick ones a day, maybe a longer one on Sunday. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.